Hi, good afternoon and welcome to my channel. I'm Dr. Carmen McGuinness, and on this channel we discuss things that pertain to relationships of all sorts. Relationships with parents, with partners, in business, with friends, and most importantly the relationship that we have with ourselves, which I call the primary relationship. So today our topic is outsmarting feelings of unworthiness. I promised this during our midweek sneak peek, and this is where we're going to go today. I think this is a really good time for this talk for two reasons. One is during the new year when we make resolutions, which I recently did a talk on that as well, how to make effective ones. I think we can sort of set our standards very high for ourselves, and just the idea of making resolutions means that we necessarily have to sort of visit, what's wrong with us. I'm just adjusting the light a little bit here. There we go. I think that's a little bit better, I hope. We shall see. There we go. So, so it's important not to do that. It can make us feel bad about ourselves when we set our standards too high. So this week we're going to talk a little bit about outsmarting feelings of unworthiness. And just brief background on me: I'm a board-certified behavior analyst. I'm a health psychologist, health psychology, behavioral medicine. I also have a master's degree in nutrition, holistic nutrition education. So that's me, and now we're going to talk about you, and probably a little bit about me too, because I tend to do that. So here we go. So it's estimated, just a little bit of background about low self-esteem first. It's estimated that between 70 and 80% of Americans suffer from feelings of unworthiness of one sort or another. Slightly more women than men suffer, slightly. But it tends to affect women a little differently, with more internalizing symptoms such as self-recrimination and physical pain, while men tend to have more externalizing behavior such as acting out to cover up their feelings. However, please do not generalize. I know I get beat up a lot by my viewers about favoring women. I'm not saying that women suffer more greatly. They just suffer differently. And please don't generalize that tendency. Psychological sex differences, the study of sex differences in psychology, reflects tendencies, not rules. So it's perfectly common to find a man who is self-recriminating and having physical symptoms as a result. A lot of stomach issues around this sort of thing as well. So, so with that said, according to some empirical studies, people with high self-esteem tend to focus on growth and improvement, whereas people with lower self-esteem spend a lot of time focusing on not making mistakes and self-disparagement for the mistakes that they do make, which of course we all make mistakes, but those folks tend to focus on it more. Those with low self-esteem are more pessimistic, tend to exaggerate the negative aspects of their performance, and they interpret comments as critical when they weren't intended that way. Low self-esteem correlates with subsequent development of social anxiety and also depression. Clearly, those with feelings of unworthiness are victims of their own thoughts. The data show that. It's important to understand the development of self-esteem in childhood before we can really delve into how to fix this problem. We gain feelings that we are worthy and valuable by being good at things that are valued by the people that we value. As children, we may dance, play sports or a musical instrument, be involved in scouting, the honor society, or some other activity, or we may just be adorable, or we may be extra clever, we may be funny, whatever it is. Our parents praise us for these accomplishments, and we are proud of ourselves because we value our parents. We value their opinion. So that's kind of how the cycle works, and that's how self-esteem evolves in childhood. It could be said that we literally see ourselves as worthy because our parents saw us as worthy. In attachment terminology, we would say we see our parents seeing us. And if they're seeing us favorably, we have favorable feelings about ourselves. So that's how the whole thing starts. It's really remarkably simple, but it can go horribly wrong. Conversely, low self-esteem is associated with physical punishment and intentional withholding of love, or what we call conditional love. And certainly it's fair enough to let your child know that you expect better of them when they mess up, which kids do, and to do the happy dance when you get better. But physical punishment or the cold shoulder is definitely not acceptable and will lead to low self-esteem, period. The data show that outstandingly. And over time, it will lead to a pattern of needing the positive appraisal of others in order to feel good about oneself. Because basically we become like a broken teacup that cannot be filled. So we constantly need that positive appraisal from others. So we can see where this is a problem, but it is possible to repair the teacup. With this information in mind, you can be a forensic problem solver on your own behalf. You can identify where these feelings come from. Could it have become a habit? Have you become more pessimistic than optimistic? Do you allow others to criticize you today in your own life? Those childhood patterns can recreate themselves in adulthood, can and do. If so, you may need to set boundaries on when and how and what kind of criticism you'll accept. Are you parenting yourself the way your parents parented you? That's a very important question. And if so, can you do a better job than they did with the knowledge of how your negative self-appraisal has harmed you? So what I recommend is identify how these experience, habits, and beliefs might be serving you, and ask yourself two simple questions. What is this in the service of? And is this working for me now? If the belief no longer serves you, let it go. Perhaps the ceremony is in order to free the belief. I know I like to write things down when I discover them about myself, and if it's something I don't like, I have a little bonfire right over there in my fire pit. Start by making an inventory of what you are good at. Include everything that you're good at, even if you don't currently view it as tremendously valuable. Remember, your thoughts might be confused on what's valuable and what isn't. An example is a client who was all down on herself for not finishing college. We spent a few sessions on this topic. And when I asked her to make a list of everything that she is good at, which, by the way, was like pulling teeth, just getting her to write down what she's good at. But the more we talked, the more she was able to come up with several. And they were things like getting her kids to bed on time, getting herself out of the house on time in the morning. She viewed herself as being very prompt. And here's the irony. These are things that I absolutely suck at. I've never been good at time. So here's something that I would tremendously value being better at, that I frequently put myself down. I'll be driving down the road late on my way to some appointment, telling myself what a bad girl I am, right? And here's somebody who doesn't value that in herself. I guess the grass is always greener applies here. And paperwork, she's good at paperwork too. Not so much me. So with your list in hand, when negative thoughts pop up, think of those things instead. Think of those things that you are good at. And honestly, you will have a chuckle at this when you look at these things. And like the person with high self-esteem, target new things you want to become good at, things that you really do value. Start to take steps towards becoming adept at those things too. You might not become a pro, I don't know, whatever, gardener. If you're always down on yourself for killing houseplants, you might not start a farm, but you will become better at it. Target short and long-term goals. This will help you avoid disappointment and feelings of failure. Take it one little goal at a time. Remember, too, to focus on improvement rather than failure. This is where you're parenting yourself really well. You're being your best parent. Notice your improvements and reward yourself for them. Learn from your mistakes. That's important, too. And then let them go rather than focusing on them and repeating them, because we will repeat what we focus on. Hear your inner cheerleader rather than your self-sabotaging, critical inner voice. Of course, every good plan needs a few props. This wouldn't work if you didn't go to Target and buy a few things or some other store. Here are some that I've found to work on myself and on other clients. Number one, I just realized I said on other clients. There you go. That's me being my own really good parent. I'm my own client. This is important stuff here coming out of the subconscious. So, props. Number one, a journal or the note app in your phone, that little app where you can take notes. When you have realizations about your life, childhood, past relationships, whatever, and how you came to have those feelings, those negative self feelings, write them down. Number two, little index cards. When you have setbacks as you try to improve on new skills that you do value, write down the lesson you learned from the little setback. Leave it around for a while until it's fully integrated, but be positive. No beating up on yourself here. And, you know, I'm not big on taping things up on windows and mirrors and refrigerators. Just leave it around. When you need to see it again, it'll pop up in your life, and eventually you can throw it away. Number three, buy yourself some stickers. You know, the kind they give out in schools. When you do well at something, as you try to make improvements in the things that you value, give yourself a sticker. Just put it on your shirt or wherever, on your hand. As you see it during the day, it's going to remind you of how awesome you are and that you are getting better at that thing. Number four, and this is the last one, and it's my favorite by far. Every now and then. For me, it's maybe, I don't know, every other month or so I'll do this. For no reason at all except that you love yourself, buy yourself a balloon. You know, the kind they sell at the checkout counter in the grocery store. A happy face maybe, or a "you're awesome" message. I saw one a while back that was a thumbs up. Treat yourself to a balloon. Leave it around the house. I don't tie them down. I let them scoot around the house. I have a big house, and as I move around, it'll appear. I'll get up in the morning and it's like, oh, it's over here now. The effect that has, rather than just tying it somewhere, is that I see it more often because it's always in a different place, and it's a surprise when I find it there. And you're going to love this last part. When the balloon starts to lose air, you know, when it gets saggy, but it still has enough to flow, long before it sinks, take it outside, just cut the little cord from it, take it outside, and set it free, literally set it free. Watch it float off until you can't see it anymore. This is so cathartic. I love doing this. And any negative thoughts that come to mind while it's floating away, and you will find that they do, by the time you get to the balloon part where you're letting a balloon go, if you're following these steps and using these props, when you look at something floating away, you will naturally think of some negative thoughts because they are floating away from you as you go through this process. So as those come to mind, as you watch that little balloon fly off, that little happy face up in the clouds, let those negative thoughts go too. So that's what I have for you today. Those are my really good ideas that have worked on my clients and me, my other client. So I highly recommend that you try those and post and let me know how they work out for you. Give yourself a hug. So I'm going to post this on Saturday this week. I'm recording it on Saturday. It's supposed to be a little rainy tomorrow also, and I love to be outside to record. As you know, I love the light out here. But I'm going to actually upload it today. I'm going to post it on Saturday because, and this is another thing you might try, if you're watching this now-ish in the next couple of days, there's a lunar eclipse tomorrow evening. On the East Coast. I'm in Florida. I'm in Central Florida. On the East Coast, it starts at about 9:30 p.m. on Sunday night and goes to about 2:30 p.m. on Monday morning. I think it's I know it's a full lunar eclipse, but I think it reaches its full point where the Earth is between the sun and the moon. And the moon is black. It's going to be a kind of a blood red because it is a blood moon. I think that's at about 12:30 Monday morning, overnight, Sunday night, midnight. So eclipses are really good for doing what the word says, eclipsing things, just shutting things off. They can add a lot of power to anything that you want to give up or say goodbye to or let go of. And eclipse energy tends to happen around the eclipse, before, during, and quite a lot after as well. So even if you're viewing this, a couple of weeks after the eclipse, still just put your mind back to that eclipse. But for those of us that are into the eclipse, that have been watching videos on YouTube and whatnot, like myself, and know about the eclipse, and you see this in time, think of those things as that moon is going over that you want to eclipse, and let them go. Just let them go and fill them with new happy thoughts about yourself. So there's lots of ideas for you. Hopefully the next time I see you, you'll be all loving on yourself. And I'll see you, I'll see you midweek for my midweek sneak peek, and then I will see you next Sunday. Have a great week.